Hey, everybody. This is Ben Soto. I got special guest Wes Locher.
Hello.
We're doing something different. Usually I do a show called Skit Chat where we just sketch and talk and chat. But today we're going to do something called Word Slingers. It's going to be our first episode. So, Wes, you are our first host or first guest here.
I appreciate it. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me. This is what happens when you get somebody on that can't draw.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, you have to change the whole show format.
exactly. Yeah. So we're here to talk about Unit 44.
Let's do it.
All right. Got issue number 1 right here.
Oh, nice. You
Yeah,
have it. That's
I,
awesome.
I had it. Yeah. Yeah,
Very
it
cool.
was in my Alterna bundle that I got like 2 years ago. Great
Nice. Yeah,
book.
it's been a thanks, man. It's been a hot minute since we had any issues come out, so we're very excited to have it come back. And it's been a long road, but it's finally here, and hopefully we can live up to our own hype.
Awesome. All right, so tell us what it's about.
Sure. So if you haven't heard of Unit 44, it essentially started as a mini series from Alterna Comics. Released our first four issues back in. Actually, we released them a whole bunch of times. We actually joined with Alterna back in 2015, back when they were mainly doing digital comics. So it came out first on Comixology. Then it came out as a collected graphic novel. It was funny at the time. The publisher Peter Samedi, Alterna was just kind of starting up with its newsprint initiative, and he said, "Hey, man, we can either you can either re-release the issues on newsprint, or you can put it out as a graphic novel. What do you want to do?" And me, I'm like, "Oh, this newsprint initiative's not going to work. Let's go with the graphic novel." So, I got to eat my words, thankfully. So we released the graphic novel, and then Pete was kind enough to let us then re-release the series in issue format as well throughout 2019, which was great and helped us get in front of a whole new audience. But the gist of the book, if you've not heard of it, is the first four issues revolve around inept Area 51 employees who forget to pay their rent on the facility's offsite storage unit, and the secret contents are then sold at public auction. So, in order to stop an alien invasion, these bumbling agents have to go and recover a specific item from the locker to save the world. So, we're leaving that premise a little bit behind. We were keeping the two bumbling agents moving forward, Agent Gibson and Agent Hatch, and we're going to do the format is now going to be kind of like a one-shot deal. So each issue is going to be completely self-contained. It'll be its own story. We'll develop the characters more. We'll get to talk about all kinds of crazy things, explore different kinds of cryptids and creatures, and anything that kind of piques my interest. So we're keeping the same sense of humor. We're gonna turn the crazy dial up to 11 is kind of our game plan moving forward.
Nice. So I'm going to go through these images you sent me here,
Sure.
and we can talk a little bit about them. Do you want to start with this first one?
Yeah, so this was our newsprint issue. The art on the original series was done by Ed Jimenez. He completely drew and colored all four of our first four issues, while I handled the writing and the lettering duties. So it was just the two of us, just jamming on this book, having a ton of fun. So we have a nice, fun little alien creature that never actually appeared in the book, but it was a great cover. It was just made as promo art, to be honest. And then we sent it to Peter for something or other, maybe an advertisement. And he was like, "Hey, we got to use this as the actual cover." So it's
Nice.
cool. We ran with it, and I have a poster of it on my wall. It's very exciting.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, and then this is the cover for our upcoming issue number 5, which is currently part of the Alterna Comics spring campaign. So if you want to grab this issue, if you want to grab the first 4 issues along with any of Alterna's other series, you can do so on their Indiegogo campaign, which is currently running. We've reached the goal, so the books will be printed. They'll be coming out in June, if not before. So there's still plenty of time to not only grab Unit 44, but a bunch of other great titles from Alterna as well, such as Downcast and Wolf and Batsy and Mr. Crypt and Tinseltown.
Those are all great books as well.
They are.
Who made this choice of putting the dialogue out here in the front cover? I like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's very
So
old school.
funny. There's kind of a funny story behind this. So this cover was done by Ed Jimenez, who was the original artist on the series. Now he didn't come forward with us just because he didn't necessarily have the time to do it. It wasn't for lack of wanting to.
Right.
But since we completed our initial 4-issue series, Ed kind of transitioned into being a full-time artist. So he does concept art for comic books and video games and animated films, all sorts of cool stuff. Like, I'm super proud of everything that he's accomplished. But unfortunately, he was just like, "Man, I just don't have the time to do the series anymore." So I brought on another artist by the name of Alexander Jovich, who some people may know as the series artist on Mr. Crypt, who has a great kind of cartoony style that really worked exactly with kind of what we had done before. So the gist of this cover was Ed drew the main cover, but then we also wanted to represent Alex on it as well. So Alex drew the little guy in the circle who's kind of the villain.
Okay.
And initially the idea was to be like, new interior artist. And we sent it to Peter at Alterna, and he slaps the funny text on it. So we were all kind of happy with how it came out. And I think that it's a nice reintroduction to the series. And since it's a great jumping on point, hopefully that will interest some folks.
Yeah, definitely.
So this issue, issue number 5, as I said, we moved kind of away from the aliens that we had in our initial series, and we send our intrepid agents to check out. They're assigned by their boss to check out and investigate a cult that's kind of started up in a nearby town, and the police can't stop them because the police have joined the cult. Everybody's joining the cult, so there must be some sort of supernatural artifact at play. So the bumbling agents are sent to see what they can dig up and to recover any supernatural items they may find along the way.
Very cool.
And then things, as they do in our insane world. So we don't have a lot of rules. It takes place in the real world for the most part, but we suspend a lot of disbelief. Anything's kind of possible. Things kind of get out of hand, out of control, and they have their ups and downs from there. So yeah, this is art by Alex Jovich, and he kept all the he worked with the designs that Ed had established and kind of put his own spin on it. I didn't want him to feel like he had to mimic the style exactly.
Right.
So he's kind of taken a few creative liberties, and I didn't even keep a lot of the cast from the original book. We essentially just had the 2 agents and their boss, whose name is Senior Agent Ballard. And from there on, I was like, I just want to create new characters, let him design new things, let him have some fun with playing in this world, so he didn't feel beholden to everything that had been set before.
Right. That looks great. Is he coloring it as well, or?
No, the colors actually come from a fellow named Andrew Pate, who's a real world friend of mine. I met him at a convention years and years ago, and I pretty much worked with him on a ton of projects. Alex he can color his own work. He likes to. I wanted to give Andrew a platform because I really like his work and I would like other people to hire him. So I was like, hey man, let's get you on this. You're doing an absolute wonderful job. My hope is that a lot of people show up in his email and get him for more coloring work here in the future, because he's awesome to work with. He's a great guy, loves comics, and just his skill level, man, is just, I've been working with him for, 4 or 5 years now, and he's just amazing.
Nice. Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. I love this color. The colors.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a great little just showcase of his talents.
Yeah, I love the cast shadow here over his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Adds a little drama to it.
Yeah, and anybody that the book's fun. It's marketed as a kind of a sci-fi humor book. I've never heard anybody say like, I don't like to laugh. So, right. If you like to laugh, if you like to have fun, a lot of my influences come from like farcical movies of like the late 80s, early 90s. So if you like movies like Airplane or the old like Leslie Nielsen flicks, like I really try to invoke a lot of that silliness and a lot of that type of humor. So, if you love or like Mel Brooks movies are some of my foundational things. So, I really tap into that. And if you're into that sort of thing, if you like those films, then this book is absolutely made with you in mind.
Yeah. Now, as far as their voices go, the character voices, like when I was reading the book, and this is probably not what you were thinking, but like I could hear Patrick Warburton.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, Patrick Warburton is absolutely the model for Agent Hatch, who's kind of the big burly guy. Yeah. That's who'd you hear for the other guy?
David Spade. I was gonna say, like, I could hear like both of them playing off each other.
Yeah, that's great. I never actually considered David Spade, to be honest with you, but I kind of like that. His voice kind of fluctuates between a few different people in my mind. Over the course of the first series, I had like a Michael Cera type in my head, because he's kind of the more immature of the agents. He's newer to the whole business of the supernatural and the extraterrestrial. So he's kind of going through a learning process. But here we've kind of jumped past the initial series. I haven't like determined how much time has gone by since the initial series, but those events have happened. So I like to think that they have a little bit more experience together under their belt. Their relationship has developed a little bit further and will continue to develop over the course of this new series. That's kind of one of the underlying things that I wanted to explore is who are these guys? What has brought them together? They didn't get along very well over the course of the initial issues, but now they seem to have come to more of an understanding. They seem to actually tolerate each other better. So what has happened that has caused that is something that I will want to show to readers throughout the course of the incoming issues.
Nice.
So yeah, it starts off like any other thing. They're gonna go check out a case. It looks very cut and dried to start with, but soon they find themselves kind of in over their heads, and that's where the humor comes from. It's where the adventure comes from. There's a lot of I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of talking in our book, just simply because when you write with jokes in mind, you have to have your setups, you have to have your punchlines, but we have moments of high action as well. So what Ben's been showing here is kind of the first 4 pages of the issue, and from here it gets crazy. I'm not gonna lie. So if this is looking interesting to those who may be watching this, whether it's now or whether it's later, I would encourage you to come along with us for a zany little ride. And then this is the cover for our 96-page Giant, which is also currently available through the Alterna Comics Spring campaign. And even though we released Unit 44 as a graphic novel, it's gone out of print at this point. I have a few copies left. I haven't seen them in the wild lately, but this is a great way to experience the first 4 issues, our first complete story, really kind of meet the characters and get a feel for the premise of the series. Not required reading, but it's a ton of fun, and it's only $6 for 96 pages, which is a pretty darn good deal.
That's a great deal. Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope people will check this out. The first series was kind of under the radar, and I don't know if that was just because of the genre or it wasn't kind of the traditional Alterna fare, but again, if people like fun and are willing to suspend disbelief, then pick it up, check it out, come on a crazy ride with us. I guarantee we'll keep you entertained.
Definitely. Like I said, I just I only had the first issue, but it was a great read.
Thanks, man.
It was funny. It was the artwork was great.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The old issues are getting a little bit hard to find. We've managed to sell at least that many that I think issue 3 is completely out of print at this point. I know I only have a handful of copies of it left as well, just from selling at conventions and such. So hopefully people take advantage of this opportunity. We may get them back in print in the future, depending. But if you can't find them, you can also read them digitally. They're available through Alterna's digital web store. So where there's a will, there's a way.
That's right. So what inspired this?
The series as a whole?
Right.
Again, it just goes back to my love of like these silly movies that I grew up on, and I don't know why I was watching them. I don't know who was putting them in front of me, but or I think they were just pretty much on TV for the most part. And I like everything. I watch everything, but for some reason, like the sillier, the better. Like there's so many movies like. I think back to like Blazing Saddles was a movie that I loved growing up, and it was parts of it were beyond my comprehension. Like I find it funnier the older I get and continue to kind of go back and re-experience it. But there's there's something that's very special about something being so incredibly stupid that it's funny, and you don't know why you laugh at it because you're like, oh, that's just so dumb. Why am I laughing at it? That's really my whole kind of modus operandi behind this whole series. Is it's so stupid that it's funny. And at the same time, it's fun to watch idiots interact with each other. And that's kind of what these 2 main characters are. You think like, there's no way that anybody in the world could be this stupid. And it's just, you get interesting interactions, and especially when you throw them into the mix with people who are smarter than them, or, people who can't convince them that they are wrong in the way that they are kind of viewing the world. It's just a way for me to celebrate the things that I enjoyed in my youth and the things that kind of inspired me as a writer.
It's awesome. All right. So what's your writing process like? I want to talk about writing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked in a lot of different mediums over the years. I've done a ton of comic books. I've written books. I work in the video game industry by day as a writer. So it's for comics, it's very much a visual medium. So for me, it kind of starts with the kernel of the idea. Like let's take Unit 44 for instance. It's like, what is the premise I want to explore? Like maybe I'm feeling vampires one week, or maybe I'm feeling Bigfoot the next week, and then it's more about like, okay, what are the jokes that kind of fit in well with that scenario? Like, because essentially that's kind of like the outline process is I'll come up with like 15 jokes or 20 jokes that I want to have throughout the issue, but how do I connect that with plot? How do I still move
Right.
the story along so that it's interesting? Usually I'll just write out like a 1 sentence summary of the story idea. From there, it's kind of like, building it out a little bit, saying, okay, well, here's let's put some meat on the skeleton, on the bones. What can happen plot wise? What interesting things can happen? What is our act one, act two, act three? And usually that's like maybe a page or two or three in a notebook, and then actually putting it into the computer, outlining it kind of page by page. Okay, so all these beats are working, making sure that you don't have too much material, making sure that you're not running short. And then from there, just kind of expanding it out into the actual comic script that then gets sent to the artist. Making sure that, I have time. I don't like to rush stuff. I find that with this particular series, the sign that a script is going well is that the story is very easy to write by that point. I've done enough just critical thinking and poking of holes that by the time I get to the scripting point, I can usually get through it in just a couple days. If I feel like I'm struggling to write it, then I start to think, maybe this isn't something I need to explore right now, or maybe I just need to pull the jokes out of this and put them in a different wrapper of some kind. But the ones that all the issues that have come out, all the issues that we have coming out, were pretty easy. I mean, it flowed very well. I knew my goals for it. I knew the story was fun. I knew it was furthering the series in some way. So just making sure that you're doing something that not only is going to be fun for the reader, but represents your best work. Ideally, I want each issue to be better than the last one was. I want to work on the things that I feel that I can grow on as a writer. So making sure that I'm also challenging myself as well is important.
So how long have you been writing?
Oh man, my whole life, really. I mean, I always wanted to be a writer ever since I was young. My father was a journalist. My mother was an English teacher. So
Oh,
every night
nice.
at dinner, it was like
Yeah.
just I was getting all the skills to be a writer. I just didn't realize it at the time. I kind of, as we do when we're young, I veered away from that for a long time. I kind of fought against it and did a lot of other
Right.
things, and then kind of came back to it a little bit later in life. And so I've been writing professionally since 2012, which is right about the time that I started comics. But I've worked in a lot of other different industries. I was a newspaper reporter for a while. I was a copywriter. I was a ghostwriter. So I have all these skills that I kind of bring to the table. That a lot of those writing skills require you to be brief, require you to be concise, require you to kind of get your point across as quickly as possible. And I found that that's all been very valuable in comics, whether that's writing dialogue, whether that's writing instructions for the artist for panel descriptions, just so they can kind of understand what's going on. So everything that I've picked up along the way, I just try to channel it into the creative projects.
That's awesome that you can take those skills, like doing newspaper reporting, and just taking it into fiction, writing
It's
fiction.
funny, if you really break it down. If you, I don't know if you've ever worked as a newspaper reporter, but what it is essentially is you have like 800 words to tell a story, and you have to have like an attention-getting opening, and you have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You have to have the quotes, which are equivalent of dialogue
Right.
in a story, and then you have to provide as much information in the shortest amount of time possible. And you also have to do it in a voice that's interesting and it's fun to read. And you have to not only inform, but entertain. So, writing, I think over my newspaper career, I, contributed somewhere around 1,000 articles to the newspaper. So you do it enough times and, it just starts to sink
Yeah.
in, and you start to say, okay, well, this is applicable to everything, all types of writing, even though it wasn't like creative fiction. It was still something that gave me skill set and added to my tool belt.
Oh, definitely. So if there's anything that today Wes could tell younger Wes, like,
Oh man,
be
start sooner, write more. Um, when we're young, we waste our time on silly things. Not necessarily waste. But we go out and we expend our energy in other places. And had I started sooner, had I maybe dedicated myself a bit more, I think I could have had a much larger body of work. I look a lot younger than I really am. So it's like now as I kind of get up there in age, I'm like, oh, all these years where I could have been producing things and I didn't either produce enough, or I didn't produce as much as I wanted to, or years where I didn't produce anything at all. It's like I just want all that time back now.
Right. Oh, let's see. We got a comment here. Ryan Wynn, my boys.
Ryan Wynn, that name sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. I haven't seen it around Facebook in a while.
Yeah, Ryan Wynn of Gods and Gears and Hammerella fame. Thanks for stopping by, Ryan. Yeah, I got to do. I've also worked extensively as a letterer, primarily for the Alterna Comics, really, along with some other independent projects. So that was Gods and Gears was a book that I got to work on for Ryan, which was a ton of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, Ryan's a good guy.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, you got what other projects do you got coming up?
I've got some fun things. It's been kind of a slow time in the comic book world. I just mainly been focusing on the Unit 44 stuff, which is about all I can balance at the moment with my day job. I do have another series that's going to be coming out, I think, in May, through a company called Silverline Comics, which is run by a friend of mine. But they're doing some cool things. They've been around for a few years now. It's run by a former editor for Marvel and Malibu Comics. His name is Roland Mann, and he got that up and running a few years ago. They're putting stuff out just through Kickstarter mainly. They tend to fund 2 issues at a time. They put those out, and then they'll go on and fund more issues. So he hit me up a few years ago. Was like, "Hey, we would love to have you come in here and do something. You know, what sounds fun?" So I pitched an idea it's a sci-fi thing. I'm working with an artist called Aaron Humphreys. The book is called The Obsoletes, and it's essentially about a group of extraterrestrial prospectors or intergalactic prospectors who through an accident, and it's kind of in the same humorous, maybe not as funny as Unit 44, but there's definitely kind of like a dark humorous edge to it. They find themselves kind of I'm trying to say how to without spoiling the book. They get stuck in time for a little while, and when they come back to a world where everything has changed and they are essentially obsolete, in the way that they did business, in the way that they operate. And rather than kind of ride off into the sunset and retire, they decide to prove that they're the best. So it's kind of a fun little story it's about family. It's about dealing with getting older. It's a story where you don't give up on your dreams easily. If you work hard for something, you should try to stay on top. So there's a lot of cool themes that probably are more applicable to where I am in life at the moment than maybe in like something like Unit 44. But it was a cool story, and it's got to work with a great team on it. It's in production at the moment, but I think May is when the Kickstarter will come out for that.
Okay, is that going to be a series or just a one-shot kind of thing?
Yeah, it's going to be a 4-issue series. So we'll kickstart the first one in May, and then issue 2 will be maybe a month or 2 after that. So we're about halfway through the pipeline at the moment on it. So things are moving around, things are moving along, and it's cool. What I really like about Silverline Comics is that there's a lot of folks. If you look through their stable of titles, like you'll recognize names. There's a lot of folks who worked in comics throughout the years. Maybe the highlights of their career are kind of behind them a little bit for, as saying it in a nice way, but like they're all still making comics and we're all still just having fun, just kind of jamming out on stuff. So, everybody's working out of their love of comics. Like we're not getting paid to do the series. I'm not getting paid to write it. The art team isn't getting paid to draw it. We'll make royalties on the back end of it if it does well, but like everybody's like just there because they love comics. So to kind of work in that environment is really inspiring and really refreshing, and I'm really pleased with how it's coming together. I wish I had something to show, but we're kind of in like the coloring stage of the first issue at the moment. So anything that I show would just be outdated, unfortunately. But I'll be hammering away on that for other things here in a couple months. So maybe we'll chat again as it gets closer.
Here we go. Another comment from Ryan. Ryan says, "Are you talking about me?" So I did have one more question for you.
Yeah,
When
man.
you're writing, what is that one writing rule that you keep in front of you when you're writing your story that you say, got to make sure I do this thing?
Be entertaining. The stuff that I find myself reading, just for my own enjoyment, or even watching at this point, is like, if anything is not fun, I don't want to watch it. Like, I'm not going to dedicate my life to watching an entire like TV season of a show that somebody recommended if it's not fun. Like, if it's
Right.
making me feel bad about life or feel bad about the world, it's like I just I don't want that in my life at the moment. So for me, it's entertain, offer some escapism. I think that right now, and over the course of the last few years, I think we really need that. And Unit 44 and this new series are kind of my way of trying to give that to people. Whether they want it or not remains to be seen. But I just want to be able to read stuff and enjoy and have fun and feel good, and coming away from that saying, that was 10 minutes to read that comic book, and I feel better because of it. It's added some sort of enjoyment to my day or to my week.
Right. It's just that escapism, just for a
Yeah,
moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't want to read. I don't want to like sit through anything that's kind of reflective of the things happening in the world. But that's just me personally. Everybody is
Right.
different.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else you want to add, Wes?
No, I mean, thank you for giving me the platform to come on and talk about Unit 44. As I mentioned, the book is available for pre-order right now. It's $2. I mean, it's $2 through Alterna Comics, and it's really, you're not making a huge investment to just give something new a shot. So I would invite people to come on with issue 5, read it if you enjoy it. Go back, read the other issues, or grab the Giant as part of this campaign. It's going to be a crazy bonkers ride, and we're basically, we've been given the status of ongoing series at this point,
That's
so
awesome.
it's our goal to just have an issue pretty much in every Indiegogo campaign moving forward until we get canceled, which we'll see how long that takes. But yeah, we want this to be something that people can rely on and people look forward to, and I don't think people are going to take any deep life lessons away from Unit 44. But again, if you put it down and you go, oh, that was fun, like I really enjoyed that and I laughed. Maybe my mouth hurts because I laughed so much, and that sticks with you for the rest of the day.
Right.
That I've done my job at that point.
Yeah. Ryan says the series is hilarious, genuinely a fun and funny read.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I didn't even pay him to say that.
Right. No. Yeah. It's a great read, and Alex is a great artist. That's awesome that you've got him on the feature books. Great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been wonderful working with him, and we've got some big plans. He's already drawn really far ahead. We're also going to have some guest artists here and there of people just that I like, that are friends of mine, that I might like. For instance, we have a kind of like a horror tinged issue coming up.
Nice.
And I have an artist that I thought excelled at that, who's a friend of mine, and had him draw that. So that's something I want to be able to insert as well, just to kind of keep it fresh and introduce people to new artists along the way. If this is going to be kind of a long haul type of situation, then I want to entertain on every level that I can. I see comic books as art. Each issue is a its own kind of statement and its own expressions, if you will. So I want to make sure that I use this medium to showcase the people that I think are talented, and people that I like to work with. So we can expect some crazy things. The other thing that we're doing is we're doing like backup strips for most of the issues that are done by some artists, whether that's Alex, whether that's Ed Jimenez. He contributed a backup strip to issue number 5. I just like to play with my friends in this crazy world whenever the opportunity arises. So hopefully we can showcase some other talents too along the way.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Wes, for coming and sharing Unit 44 with us.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, everybody check it out. Unit 44, it's an awesome book over at Alterna Comics.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.
Bye.